Welcome to Postscript, where we teach, chat, and rant about narrative and film. I'm Tori, and I prepare and guide each episode.
And I'm David. I don't know what we're talking about today, but I'm ready to have a strong opinion.
This episode is about the style of writing, dialogue, and performance that was used in the 30s, 40s, and 50s in gangster movies, film noir, and other crime movies to show toughness, edginess, and cleverness. I'm not sure if other people think of it as one singular thing so much, but to me it's definitely unique to its time and has its own aesthetic and style. But it doesn't really have a name that I could find. So I'm just going to call it patter, because that's something I kind of saw used and I've heard used. So I'm just going to explain a little more about it, and then we can listen to some examples. I'm going to be playing a lot of examples through this episode.
Okay.
To me, there are three main things that coalesce to create patter. One is slang and lingo, as well as innuendo and double entendre, or just elaborate metaphors, especially for things that were too taboo to say directly, like other words for guns, jail, sex, money. Two is the pace and the tone of the dialogue. It has to be really fast, short, and delivered in a kind of like staccato rhythm, but also monotone. And three is the accent. It has to be a city accent, but it's usually a New York accent, even if it takes place in Chicago or California. That's important. Okay, so just to set the tone, we're going to get started with a few examples.
Okay.
If I wasn't on the force, I'd have done the job cheap.
Hey, did you ever stop to think how you'd look with a lily in your hand?
No, I never did. I've been in this game a good many years, and I put the cuffs on a lot of mugs. Someday you and I are going to take a ride, Rico. And when we do, I'll have the cuffs on you, too.
No buzzard like you will ever put any cuffs on Rico.
Definitely getting that down.
Yep, that's what I was talking about with that fast rhythm.
Yeah.
So that was Little Caesar from 1931. This will be from Scarface from 1932, the original Scarface. And if you don't understand it, that's normal.
That was a fine job, Tony. Remember, that's only chicken feed. You stepped into big company. You stick to me and do what I say, play square, and you'll be walking around with lace pants and a gold hat. You know what I mean?
Sure, I know.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, this is awesome, but I
don't know what the fuck they're talking about.
Yeah, I mean.
Okay, this is from The Maltese Falcon from 1941. You've seen this one.
Sorry I got up on my hind legs, boys, but you fellas trying to rope me made me nervous. Miles getting bumped off upset me, and then you birds cracking foxy, but it's all right now that I know what it's all about.
This is great. This is great.
By the way, we're going to play a lot more clips later, so this isn't the end of the clips. This is from The Big Sleep from 1946. You've seen The Big Sleep also? I remember when we watched The Big Sleep, you were like, because it's Humphrey Bogart and Lauren Bacall, and you were like, did they invent cool?
But I don't like your manners.
Well, I'm not crazy about yours. I didn't ask to see you. I don't mind if you don't like my manners. I don't like them myself. They're pretty bad. I grieve over them long winter evenings, and I don't mind you ritzing me or drinking your lunch out of a bottle. But don't waste your time trying to cross-examine me.
People don't talk to me like that.
Oh.
People don't talk to her like that.
Well, people don't talk like that.
Good point.
This is funny. I don't understand the word, but it's funny.
Okay, we got one more. This is from Pickup on South Street from 1953, which you haven't seen, but it's great, and we'll watch it sometime.
And I know you pinched me 3 times, got me convicted 3 times, and made me a 3-time loser. And I know you took an oath to put me away for life. Well, you're trying awful hard with all this patriotic eyewash, but get this. I didn't grift that film, and you can't prove I did. And if I said I did, you'd slap that fourth rap across my teeth no matter what promises you made.
Are you feeling warmed up?
Yeah, definitely.
All of these aspects that I mentioned, slang, metaphor, pace, and tone, and accent, were all prevalent at the time in other genres. And sometimes you just get 2 out of 3, even in crime movies. Sometimes only some characters use it, or characters even code switch and use it only in certain situations, almost as if it's another language. So a little of my history. So I grew up with Turner Classic Movies on constantly in our house. Shout out to my mom. I think she and my dad have probably seen The Big Sleep at least 100 times and counting.
Take it easy. I don't slap so good around this time of the evening.
For real. So I grew up hearing patter all the time, and I'm sure I'm a lot more familiar with it than just an average American millennial. You're obviously going to understand less of this since you learned English later in life. But like, you watch so many Hollywood movies in English now that you might be on par with the average American when it comes to patter. I wouldn't be surprised. You watch a lot of these types of movies. So I think the real challenge for you is probably the bad sound quality.
Definitely. And the pace.
And the pace.
And the accent as well.
And the accent. Yep. So those things together make it really difficult for not just you, but most people to like understand what the hell they're saying. Even with subtitles, it can be tough to read as quickly as they're speaking, especially with so many unfamiliar words.
Yeah, it's just interesting. I would love to know how much of it was actually coming from street slang and how much of it was just the writers, made it up.
And unfortunately, it's almost impossible to know that. How would we possibly know? They didn't have like home recording equipment. Almost anybody who was being recorded would have known that they were being recorded, and the types of people who would have been recorded were not mobsters.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the problem because, I'm pretty sure there are all kinds of studies in sociology about the slang and the way people used to speak in different time periods, but it's such a specific mob culture related thing that it might not be documented anywhere else but in the movies.
It would just be hard to know to what extent they actually used it and how much it was influenced by the movies as opposed to the other way around. Not that that makes it not legitimate, because obviously that's just how culture works. But, it would be funny to know there are parts of these movies where they actually call out, oh, you're talking like you're in the movies. In the movie. It really happens funny. Multiple times.
Wow, how meta.
Yeah.
What's the matter? Haven't you ever seen a gun before? What do you want me to do? Count 3 like they do in the movies?
We're going to go through the history of patter in this episode, and at the end, we're going to have some patter trivia. This isn't like a comprehensive history. I'm not a historian. These are just like some observations I made while I was watching things and doing some like light research. So write in if you feel like I'm off base with any of this, or if you're like a linguistics person or something and can give me any like actual insight.
All right, Big Mouth. Well, you better get your hat and start running, see, because you're all through. Call up the papers and tell them that, you rotten, dirty lying copper.
So the main insight I had while preparing this episode is that the person who speaks patter in the movies really changed over time. So just like today, things that once seemed edgy and cool eventually got absorbed into the mainstream culture and lose their edge, or are only used ironically. So it was exactly the same thing with this. So the first thing we're going to talk about are gangster movies from the early 1930s. Movies like The Public Enemy, Little Caesar, and the original Scarface.
If you ain't out of town by tomorrow morning, you won't never leave it except in a pine box.
Get it?
You know what I mean?
See? Why do they always have a lisp? Also, because it's Humphrey Bogart and he had a lisp.
Probably because Bogart naturally had one, and
yeah. And then everyone was just
And ever
mimic-
since that, it's just...
See? Or you just have to clench your teeth when you're talking like that because you're so pissed off all the time.
You know, you turned out to be a pretty snappy-looking dish.
You know, you turned out to be a pretty snappy-looking dish.
Oh, wow. If somebody called me that, I couldn't tell if it's a compliment or an insult.
I'll admit they are a little slow, The Public Enemy, Little Caesar, and Scarface, but there are some really brutally awesome scenes. Of the three, I'd say check out The Public Enemy, mostly for the visuals and James Cagney's performance.
Oh, you dirty double-crossing.
The culture that's being shown in these movies, I think, is what Patter was originally based on. That is like the crime-ridden slums of Chicago. Although there are similar movies that take place in the slums of New York.
I'm going to get that swell-headed mug if it's the last thing I ever do.
So basically, like early 1900s, there was a huge influx of poor immigrants from Europe. Then Prohibition, which was still happening when these movies were made, was from 1920 to 1933. And then the Great Depression was from 1929 to 1939. So tons of organized crime, rise of mobsters, gangsters, etc. So these movies are really like ripped from the headlines, like of the time, which is weird for us to think about, I think, because we think of these movies as being like about the past, because they were also movies about mobsters all through the 20th century, but
It's pretty interesting.
yeah. These early 30s movies feature explicitly Irish Americans and Italian Americans. It's very clear. They're not being subtle about it at all.
Hey, that's you.
Yep.
There's Tony Passer. Can drive a car better than any mug in the town. Otero. He's little, but he's the goods all right. Bat Carilla. Killer Peppy.
They are specifically the children of Irish and Italian immigrants who these movies are about. That's who speaks like this. And the movies make the ethnicity part like really explicit, which will change later on. So like the Irish American characters mostly have Irish last names and their parents have Irish accents. Like Irish from Ireland accents. And the Italian American characters mostly have Italian last names and their parents have Italian accents and are constantly eating spaghetti. It's true.
And what, then the Irish are drinking Guinness?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
Like it's that explicit.
And they're all called O'Neill and Gallagher.
Exactly. So James Cagney, who was Irish American, played a lot of these Irish American gangster characters, like in The Public Enemy. But you'll find this funny. So most of the Italian American characters were played by Jewish immigrants. So, yeah. Italians just weren't good enough for Hollywood yet.
Insert here. Italians are not Jews.
Yeah. Well, you just did it, so it's okay. Family Guy.
Everybody knows who needs to know.
Okay. So specifically, Paul Muni, I guess, who plays Scarface, who is an Italian character, but he is Jewish from Austria-Hungary. Also, Edward G. Robinson, who plays Little Caesar, is Jewish from Romania. They both of these people who played these iconic Italian gangster characters spoke Yiddish growing up.
Oh, wow. That's really funny.
Patter here is heavily associated with New York or Chicago accents of the poor and working class. Many of the actors actually had these accents in real life, but if they didn't, they faked it or they overemphasized it. So in the early 1930s, Patter in movies was spoken by the lower classes, people who belonged to the urban, inner city, like shady underworld. It represented being like rough, tough, etc. So that brings us to the question you asked earlier, which is the big question of this episode, I think, is did people ever really talk like this in real life? The best answer I can give is kind of. Like, I think that a lot of these slang terms really did exist before the movies, but I also, like I said, think that life imitates art, imitates life. Like, these movies were huge hits, and I think that after seeing them, people did associate this with sounding tough and capable and clever, and they tried to imitate it. So ultimately, it's like part authentic and part an idealized version of what tough people wish they sounded like.
You always have a very smooth explanation ready, huh?
What do you want me to do, learn to stutter?
The listeners may not know that I'm from New Jersey. I'm wearing my Jersey Shore t-shirt right now.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
And I'm both Italian American and Irish American and other things. Most of my great-grandparents immigrated through Ellis Island in the early 1900s, and all of my grandparents were born and grew up in New York during this era. So they would have been around 10 when these movies came out. Some were poorer than others in my family. I have no knowledge or connection that I know of with the mob, I should say. But I would say that, wouldn't I?
You better.
That's right. But yeah, I don't recall them speaking like this. But they did have like old school New York accents. Different.
They probably
ones,
did this at work. You know, this is work lingo.
Yeah. My Italian American grandpa he probably spoke the most like this, and he did have some pretty colorful like phrases. But he liked sounding tough, so it kind of goes along with that idea of like he probably watched these movies when he was like 10 years old and was like, that sounds awesome, I want to sound like that, and then just imitated it. But he also just had like fake Italian phrases that he used.
Which is adorable.
Because he couldn't speak, this blows my mind, he could not speak Italian. And his parents couldn't speak English, so they could not communicate with each other.
I don't know how that happened, but it's fascinating.
It really tells you something about that generation.
Yeah.
And how it's so different from our generation.
Yeah, what it tells me is that children just grew like grass.
Yeah, pretty much. They just like pooped them out and then just like sent them out on the street.
Yeah, and now, go to the cinema and learn how to speak.
And then they just come home for spaghetti.
Yeah.
And that's it. You know, there were multiple waves of Italians being cool in our culture, and because they were edgy originally, it's not really a thing anymore, but it was. And I think my grandpa was trying to imitate more like Frank Sinatra than sound like a gangster. But that's a subject for another day.
There's still a fair overlap there.
Like the Rat Pack thing was like trying to sound like this, but slower.
Oh, okay, so it's like...
And drunker.
Uh-huh. Okay, so it's a bit like, like reggae versus dub.
Yeah. And they're not gangsters anymore. They just work with gangsters. They're just associates.
Yeah. Well, they're the entertainers of the mob.
Yeah.
But
yeah, as we'll see, the innuendo and like elaborate metaphors mixed in with the slang gets more and more absurd and over the top. And it gets to the point where no one could actually speak like this in real life, especially not this fast. Like there's a line from the Maltese Falcon from 1941 that sums this up perfectly.
Keep on riding me. They're going to be picking iron out of your liver.
The cheaper the crook, the gaudier the patter, huh?
The cheaper the crook, the gaudier the patter. essentially saying, like, the trashier the criminal, the more ridiculous the patter is. It sounds like the writer is, like, giving you a note.
Yeah, that's good. That's a good rule.
Yeah. But my point is that, like, you'll see that, you know, patter becomes more and more self-aware and over the top as time goes on. Like, in the early 30s, it was sort of like a sign of authenticity, but as time goes on, it becomes more like a tongue-in-cheek joke.
Who's the creep? What's he in for? He looks like a second-story cat thief.
So, you brought it up earlier, but let me take a minute to recognize something that had a big impact on this genre, but also the language they used, and that's the Hays Code, or the Motion Picture Production Code. So, I'm going to briefly explain what this was. So, throughout the 20s and early 30s, Hollywood and the film industry was getting a reputation for, like, debauchery and sin, and religious people were getting upset. The Supreme Court had ruled at the time that film wasn't protected by free speech because films could be, quote, used for evil, unquote. So, yeah, that's enough, I guess, to take free speech away from something.
Yeah.
So states could censor film. And there were several states that passed laws censoring film, which was a big pain in the ass for studios because states were re-editing their movies to correspond to different censorship.
You mean pain in the rectum?
Sorry, yes. A pain in the behind because states were re-editing their movies to correspond to certain censorship restrictions. So it was just a mess. So in 1934, all of the major studios got together and created this self-censorship board and an ethics code called the Hays Code. And studios would get films approved by this board before releasing them until the code was replaced by the rating system in the late 1960s. So if you want to hear more about this, I would recommend listening to the podcast You Must Remember This. The episode is called Will Hays and the Pre-Code Hollywood. It's very good. It covers this thing in depth. You've asked me about the Hays Code before, and it can be confusing. Like, don't think of the code as, like, the ultimate, like, direct guidelines that are very clear. Like, before the code, studios were also self-censoring movies to appeal to various, like, groups and laws so they could distribute more easily. And then after the code was implemented, like, the people implementing it were so corrupt and not ethical individuals at all. And there was all kinds of, like, nepotism and different fuckery going on. So if you're wondering why some things were approved and others weren't, like, it really doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
Are you trying to make a point that Hollywood always been the same?
Like, yeah, it's, yeah.
Yeah, and that's why in certain situations or certain time periods, they get more sensitive and they get looser, even though it's supposed to be the same system.
Yeah, and this is true for, like, any censorship that you know of art, you know? Like, if you think of, you know, the Soviet Union or Iran, you know, or whatever, like, where there's censorship, like, some things get through and other things don't, and it doesn't quite make sense.
Yeah.
I mean, you know about this from Hungary.
Yeah.
Like, how did that get through? A lot of time things get through just because they're weird.
Yeah.
And they can't figure out what they're even about.
Yeah. A lot of time, I mean, like, sometimes in Hungary, for example, both in movies and music, things slip through censorship because purposefully they wrote something way more offensive in the script, just so the censors will focus on that and remove it. And they just, like, had something slightly more hidden or more poetic in the background, and they're just going to ignore that part.
Also, like, yeah, Billy Wilder's movies in general seemed to be more risque than a lot of other movies of the time, but he was super well connected in Hollywood and a very established director. So, you know, he probably just got away with it or bribed people. I don't know, but not to spread shit about Billy Wilder, but, you know, just saying, you know, it just wasn't, it was not an ethical group of people, even though it was technically an ethics board, as is so often the case.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, I bring this up because there were guidelines and limitations around language usage in the Hays Code, and just generally at that time, and I think that's part of why the use of slang and metaphor and innuendo became so popular for showing toughness, because you couldn't just swear like it's a Scorsese movie.
Mm-hmm.
So the Hays Code itself is kind of funny, just...
Funny
like,
how?
So I'm going to talk about the Hays Code specifically, because reading the text is interesting, and I recommend it.
Okay.
So it just generally says that obscene, profane, and vulgar words are forbidden, just in a general sense. But it only defines these loosely as words to do with God, not used in a religious context, including God.
What?
Spelled out, God.
God?
G-A-W-D, which I take as a personal attack on New Jersey.
Yeah, definitely.
It also specifically calls out hell, S-O-B, that S-O-B, son of a bitch, but written S-O-B, and damn, and nothing else. It doesn't call out any other specific words, just God, hell, S-O-B, and damn.
This is also a lot like, you know, YouTube community guidelines.
Oh, you know what? Like, censoring of social media, them censoring themselves because the government isn't, and...
Yeah, no, I was not kidding.
It's a lot like that, yeah.
It's a lot like that.
And, like, certain things are going to get through and other things aren't, just based on people's popularity, really.
Yeah.
You know, and, like, public opinion.
Yeah, because they mix the sensitivity with also popularity and what, you know, like, what attracts, you know, like, yeah, like, if it really generates clicks and likes, then it will slip through.
Yeah. That's actually such a good comparison.
Yeah, because it's exactly the same thing. Like, there's no formula to it. That's not an actual real government regulation. It's just outsourced to the private industry.
Yeah.
And they have so many other interests that are far more important than the purity of the language. So they just like mix it together with those.
But I mean, like, these guidelines came out, but note that, like, just a few years later, the line, "Frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn," famous line from Gone with the Wind, like, is in that movie. It's just a few years after this came out. Yeah, sometimes they'll, like, in movies, sometimes they'll imply a bad word or, like, make it into a joke. Like, someone will interrupt someone just when they're about to say. So they'll say something like, you know where you can stick that or something, you know, without going too far.
Anybody see him?
I did. They ain't coming.
That all they said?
They said you could take a flying...
Okay.
And in so many cases, it only makes the message even stronger because suddenly it's going to be cooler and more poetic and more interesting.
Yeah, I mean, we wouldn't have had this awesome dialogue if they hadn't censored, probably. So.
Yeah.
What can I do for you? I can do what? Where? Oh, no, I wouldn't like that. Neither would my daughter.
Wow. And I think it's a lot more effective than just saying something dirty.
Another way, or I guess another version of patter that's used is in romantic scenes, but as flirting. So I'm thinking specifically of Double Indemnity from 1944.
There's a speed limit in this state, Mr. Neff. 45 miles an hour.
How fast was I going, officer?
I'd say around 90.
Suppose you get down off your motorcycle and give me a ticket.
Suppose I let you off with a warning this time.
Suppose it doesn't take.
Suppose I have to whack you over the knuckles.
Suppose I bust out crying and put my head on your shoulder.
Suppose you try putting it on my husband's shoulder.
It's very sexy.
Yeah.
Speaking of horses, I like to play them myself. But I like to see them work out a little first. See if they're front runners or come from behind. Find out what their whole card is. What makes them run.
Find out mine?
I think so.
Go ahead.
I'd say you don't like to be rated. You like to get out in front. Open up a lead, take a little breather in the back stretch, and then come home free.
You don't like to be rated yourself.
I haven't met anyone yet that could do it. Any suggestions?
Well, I can't tell till I've seen you over a distance of ground. You've got a touch of class, but I don't know how far you can go.
A lot depends on who's in the saddle.
Oh man, it's so non-subtle.
I know.
Like, it's actually, I don't think there's any erotic about it because it's just way too on the nose. And in the meantime, you're also like seeing, you know, horse races.
It's not working
just
for
like,
you.
Yeah, like it's combining something like a horse race that I don't think there's anything sexy about it, but I'm really not a horse person, so maybe it's just me.
Just not your thing.
But yeah, it's really funny. Very entertaining though.
Yeah.
This is like Naked Gun level flirting. Actually,
nice beaver.
Yeah, nice beaver. That's why that I can't remember the title of it, but there was that Steve Martin
Dead
thing.
Men Don't Wear Plaid.
Yeah. And I mean, it was just like kind of like a mashup of so many different film noirs combined with him.
Yeah.
But yeah, just it already works as a parody as well.
And we also watched the Cheap Detective.
Oh yeah.
Which with Peter Falk but also they kind of make fun of this stuff in Murder by Death.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Now, if one of you gentlemen would be so kind as to give my lady friend here a glass of cheap white wine, I'm going down the hall to find a can.
Yeah, he's doing a Humphrey Bogart impression.
Yeah, he's doing a very good Bogart.
I don't kiss.
Just this once, Sam.
I don't like kissing. Now leave me alone.
So yeah, I don't mean to say that like this is patter necessarily or like exactly the same as like gangster speak, but like I think it's derived from it. Like there's some similarities there. There's the staccato rhythm, the monologue, like the monotone delivery, and the fast talking, the scripted sounding dialogue, and then these characters all just happen to have like, because they're film noirs, they also have that like New York or Chicago accent. Also the innuendos and the slang. Sometimes the femme fatale won't speak in patter, like she won't speak like that because she's trying to fool the guy into thinking that she's like sophisticated and high class. So there'll be code switching where she won't, but then when she gets mad, she will.
I was tussling with the most dangerous animal in the world, a woman.
The one-liners about women in general, like they really like figured out something essential about women who are like otherwise like happen to be very mysterious because they're so illogical compared to man that they're just a major mystery. That's amazing, like how common it is in this particular genre. I mean, it was like very common during that time, but it feels like it's a very essential type of the coolness of the noir character, or like part of the whole idea of Philip Marlowe misogynist observations about ladies.
Yeah, it's a very like version horror kind of a dichotomy. That, and it's always like they're duplicitous, like women are they're either the good kind or the bad kind, or the bad kind pretending to be good. Or the good kind pretending to be bad, but there's no there's no other option here. But they can't be trusted either way. You can't trust them whether they're good or bad. Either they're good and they're going to be hysterical, or they're bad and, they're just trying to trick you with their sexual, whatever, appeal.
Yeah.
There ought to be a law against dames with claws.
Okay, so we talked about gangster movies, and then we kind of talked about other places where this has surfaced, like in, romantic dialogue and things like that. So now we'll talk more about film noir in the 40s. So gangster movies continued through the 30s and on, but another type of crime movie rose to greater prominence in the 40s, and that's film noir. Plus the, hard-boiled detective movie. These things are sometimes treated as separate things. So much is written about these genres, so I'm not really gonna unpack too much because there's a lot. But I think what's important is that during this time, patter becomes less of an indication of a specific class and a specific place, which are slums, Italians, New York, etc., and more of an indication of crime, roughness, street smarts, that can turn up in any class, any job, any place in America.
What is a hard-boiled detective movie?
So one feature of a hard-boiled detective story is that everyone is corrupt, the gangsters and the police, which is why the detective is hard-boiled, meaning they're cynical and desensitized to everything around them. They don't trust anyone except themselves.
So how is it hard-boiled? I don't think I understand the metaphor.
I guess it's just they're hardened on the outside as opposed to the consistency of an egg that's not hard-boiled. Or I guess it doesn't have to be an egg. It can be anything that's hard-boiled.
What else you can hard-boil?
I don't know. I guess you could hard-boil something else. Yeah.
But you can't do the same with pasta.
Mm-hmm.
The longer you boil it, the mushier it gets.
Mm-hmm.
What else you can hard boil, meaning the longer you boil it, the harder it gets.
I don't know. I don't know where the phrase comes from, but I think the idea is, let's say they're only
Please send us in an email.
Yes. I think the idea is that they've been soaking in this boiling environment of crime, that they've become hardened.
So they just seen too much. They experienced too much.
And now they're very cynical and desensitized to the whole thing.
Okay, I understand that.
Yeah.
And actually that trope lived much longer. 48 Hours and Die Hard and Lethal Weapon. It feels like it's still a pretty active thing that burned out, seen too much, cynical cop.
Yeah. Yeah, the idea being that they don't trust anybody, they only rely on themselves. It's this very, because that's how they're appealing to us as the viewer. Even though they're part of the establishment, they're part of this institution, they're not really part of it, because they play by their own rules and all that kind of thing.
Oh yeah, Dirty Harry.
Dirty Harry, yeah. Even though there's a lot of overlap between film noir and hard-boiled, film noir is more psychological, the sociopathic tendencies that exist within everyone. But in hard-boiled, it's pretty much always detectives. And it's not so much about their internal sociopathic tendencies, but the external corruption of the police and also the crime world around them. So yeah, there's overlap, but anyway, so yeah, the cops in these movies will also speak in patter, just like the criminals.
Oh, quit stalling. All you have to do is swear out a complaint they took a poke at you, and I'll throw them in a can.
So the people at the DA's office will speak in patter as well.
Tell him about the Thompson rap. Tell him you think somebody has squealed.
Yeah. Your side of the fence is
Almost as dirty as mine.
That's kind of an indication that they've been corrupted by the culture.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I'm going to use the term WASP, which stands for White Anglo-Saxon Protestant, because that's really who I'm talking about. I'm not going to say white and like pretend like Irish and Italian people and Jewish people aren't white because race is a social construct, blah, blah, blah. But like they were stigmatized lower class at that time and then WASPs at that time. And we could add like middle class or upper working class to WASP here. So anyway, in film noir, WASPs also use patter because it just indicates dark, sinister, nefarious tendencies or like street smarts. So it doesn't necessarily indicate class, ethnicity, or origin by the 1940s. So it kind of evolves over time to encompass like more people, and it just like is reflective of this darker side of like even of like WASP culture. So it's not just reserved for Italians and Irish anymore.
Yeah.
And as time goes on, there are still like explicitly Italian or Irish gangster characters, but it's less explicitly ethnically homogenous like it was in those movies from the 30s, because that was beginning to be in like bad taste. There's even stuff about that in the Hays Code, like not explicitly calling out a certain ethnic group as being this or that, you know. And, you know, we see that later, like, you know, these like multicultural, like super diverse gangs that you get like in later, I mean, after the Hays Code, like in 80s movies and things like that. Like they always have like one person from every ethnicity. And it's like, wow, this gang is so diverse.
Yeah.
So yeah, one example of this thing of like WASP culture having patter in it in a way that sounds edgy is Double Indemnity from 1944. The film focuses on an insurance salesman and a wealthy housewife. We heard that clip before. Who are both basically WASPs as far as I can tell. And they commit a murder together, but they sound like gangsters when they speak. Like their lives are extremely boring and middle class, but the patter makes them sound edgy and exciting, even when they're just describing the insurance business.
You think you're such a hot potato as a claims manager, such a wolf on a phony claim.
Like he's talking about insurance.
Also, they're just going back and forth with totally different metaphors. Like from, like in you know, like in one sentence, he switched from potato to a wolf. Like there's any connection between those two.
Yeah, some of these, I mean, this is a Billy Wilder movie, and even though it's like so great, it definitely has that vibe of like someone just stayed up all night with, you know, like finished off a bottle of whiskey and wrote the whole script. You know, like things kind of feel a little loose and like they've just been made up on the fly.
Yeah.
It's part of the charm.
Yeah, it's also interesting. I mean, it's like slightly off topic, but you know, like you told me about like how rushed production was back then.
Oh yeah.
That sometimes they had the poster before the script was finished.
Oh yeah, that was more like for pulpy movies, but yeah, no, that was still true for other movies as well. But yeah, like if you look at some of the credits of some of these like golden age of Hollywood directors and writers, they're doing like 20 movies in a year.
So
and the
weird.
actors too.
Yeah. It's so funny because yeah, like now that's an entire career of a director.
But I mean that's the benefit of having no labor laws and having like this really, you know, fascistic monopoly on all film that they had during the studio era.
Ah, the good old days.
Like they just had, you know, the studio lot. They just kept people there 24/7, and they went from, you know, what's it called? soundstage to soundstage shooting all day, so it was a very enclosed system, and it was easy to just mix and match. Oh, you got the Western set, you got you got your genres, and everything was shot in the studio too, so that made it obviously a lot easier to control everything.
Yeah.
Okay, I was gonna play more clips of this.
What kind of an outfit is this, anyway? Are we an insurance company or just a bunch of dim-witted amateurs to write a policy on a mug like that?
Now, wait a minute, Keys. I don't rate this beef.
I mean, the movie's called Double Indemnity, which is a reference to like a clause in an insurance policy. But it's kind of a play on words, like double, like the two of them, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, that's exactly how much I got about it. Like, it's like double something. Yeah, it's like,
I'm not sure what indemnity means, really. Okay, here's another one.
But, Walter, I didn't do it, and I'm not going to do it.
Not if there's an insurance company in the picture, baby. They know more tricks than a carload of monkeys. And if there's a death mixed up in it, you haven't got a prayer. They'll hang you just as sure as 10 dimes will buy a dollar. And I don't want you to hang, baby.
Edward Norton's character in Fight Club talks about insurance, and like that's the very opposite of it. Like, it's supposed to be, like this boring guy with a boring job, and he talks about it, and it's the most boring thing you can hear on a plane.
Yeah, it's like a joke how insurance salesmen are supposed to be like the worst people.
That's crazy, all right. I'm a salesman.
Yeah, peddler, glad-hander, backslapper. You're too good to be a salesman.
Nobody's too good to be a salesman.
Oh, phooey. All you guys do is just ring doorbells and dish out a smooth line of monkey talk.
There's a lot of monkeys going on.
Yeah.
So yeah, in this movie, there's only one non-WASP character who's an Italian-American young guy named Nino Zecchetti. And he's supposed to be like slimy and lower class, but ironically, he's one of the characters that doesn't use patter. Isn't that strange? So like, in contrast...
that's very interesting.
Yeah. In contrast to the WASP characters who speak like they're gangsters, the like lower class Italian kid sounds waspy. It's really getting all mixed up by this point.
Yeah.
They also get Edward G. Robinson, who played Little Caesar in this, but in this his name is Keys, which is like an Anglo-Saxon name, and he's not a gangster, he's a claims adjuster. But he talks like he's still in Little Caesar.
Yeah, the whole thing seems just as consistent as their metaphors.
Yeah, I mean, my point being that, like, basically they're now patterns being separated from where it came from completely. And now it's just being assigned to whoever they want to sound cool and edgy and capable,
Yeah. Is that where the whole idea of, like, cool one-liners are coming from?
I think just the scripted sounding nature of this writing is maybe, like, the fact that it is kind of campy. Like, it becomes campy after a while.
Yeah.
Is part of what maybe carried over, that people weren't so concerned with whether or not dialogue sounded authentic. That it was more that it was meant to be like an idealized version of what you could be if you were cool enough.
Yeah. Yeah. Especially a characteristic of that cynical cop character.
Yeah.
But Arnold is the best at it because his one-liners are so bad, it's hilarious.
Yeah.
Let out some steam, Bennett.
Yeah, you kind of feel like they are supposed to sound pre-scripted, but they're so bad that it's like he made them up on the spot.
usually the one-liners of Arnold's characters are bad enough that they're believable, that this dork just made that up. Like, they're dad joke level bad.
It's the stay up all night with a bottle of whiskey writing a script effect, I think. Striking again. And while we're on the subject with Double Indemnity, there's another thing I want to point out, and that's the location where patter is spoken now changes from New York and Chicago to San Francisco and LA. Like, The main iteration of patter that really developed in the 40s came out of hard-boiled detective novels, which were the cheap dime store novels that about crime that were popular, and many of these were adapted to film. Two of the biggest novelists of this genre were Raymond Chandler, who wrote The Big Sleep and co-wrote the screenplay for Double Indemnity, among other movies, and Dashiell Hammett, who wrote The Maltese Falcon and The Thin Man, just to name a couple. They really caused this association between patter and the LA, San Francisco locations. But they really utilized and evolved patter to a new level. And it's interesting because I'm not entirely sure if they would have heard or experienced patter in real life, or if they were basically just taking it from movies. So yeah, I think they might have just been like taking it from the movies to the novels, then the novels took it to the movies. I believe they were both WASPs, essentially. Neither was super poor or from New York or Chicago, but both had jobs before they were novelists where they may have experienced the real-life version of patter. Hammett actually was a private detective in San Francisco before he became a novelist.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So
that's pretty amazing.
So maybe he actually heard it, or maybe he just heard it in the movies and brought it and put it on San Francisco.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so interesting how hard to like keep track of it. Because there's a lot of cross-influencing going on. Yeah, definitely. But the really bizarre thing to me is that even though patter moves from to LA and San Francisco, the New York and Chicago accents remain, like, inexplicably in a lot of cases. So, like, Philip Marlowe, who you mentioned before, who is one of Raymond Chandler's quintessential hard-boiled private detective characters and the main character in The Big Sleep. He's supposed to be from California, but a lot of people would argue that Humphrey Bogart is like the quintessential Philip Marlowe, but he's got a pretty characteristic New York accent. Yeah. And they never explain why he has that accent. Yeah. Not to mention Lieutenant Columbo.
I was going to say, for the listeners, this is the 70s TV show about a homicide detective in LA, but he's played by Peter Falk, who has a very characteristic New York accent.
Yeah. And a lot of the blue collar characters who he has who he talks to during the movie. I mean, like during the show, like it's not only, you could maybe like get away with the idea that he dresses and talks and acts like a very stereotypically New York character in LA, but whenever he interacts with somebody who's also like a likable blue collar character, they're also very New York. And they're also wearing so many layers for LA as well. Like they even dress like, I mean, like the lieutenant, he wears a jacket and a button down and a trench coat.
Yeah.
In Los Angeles, like that sounds horrible.
And the villains all have turtlenecks with blazers.
Yeah. I don't know why they decided to do it in LA, because they clearly wrote the script that it's supposed to be New York or Chicago. And that's exactly what I just realized.
Yeah.
That it started with Noir.
Yeah.
The first image in my head when you talk about film noir is also like a dark New York thing. But also, if I think about the actual noir movies that I saw, they do set in LA. And the neo-noirs...
And San Francisco.
And the neo-noirs also very typically set in LA or San Francisco.
Where's Chinatown take place?
It's one of West Coast for sure.
Yeah, West Coast. And then, it's also funny that Peter Falk plays Humphrey Bogart, or plays a satirical version of Humphrey Bogart in a couple of different movies.
Yeah.
Like, as if the only person to play this LA character is, or like California-born character is another New Yorker.
Yeah.
And then Lauren Bacall, who's also in a lot of Hardboiled film noir with Humphrey Bogart, she also speaks in patter, and she's also from New York and has like a bit of a New York accent. Now, there's another portrayal of Philip Marlowe in the movie Murder, My Sweet from 1944, and this time he's played by Dick Powell, who is originally from Arkansas. And it's so weird because it's one of the rare exceptions I could find where somebody's speaking with the slang of patter, but without the cadence or the accent.
The joint looked like trouble, but that didn't bother me. Nothing bothered me. The 220s felt nice and snug against my appendix.
Which make him sound like a lot more Leslie Nielsen, actually. It sounds like when he's doing these like hilarious noir-esque monologues.
Okay, Marlowe, I said to myself, you're a tough guy. You've been sapped twice, choked, beaten silly with a gun, shot in the arm until you're as crazy as a couple of waltzing mice. Now let's see you do something really tough, like putting your pants on.
Without the Italian accent is just too much.
It's not an Italian accent.
Like Italian and American.
Saying it's not like they're like, okay, Marlo, I said to myself.
It would be funny
Sounding
though.
Like Borat.
Yeah.
So, in contrast, it wasn't very common at the time, even until recently, to drastically and consistently change your accent for a role.
Mm-hmm.
But I want to call out this one performance by Anne Savage in Detour from 1945, because she puts on this fake New York accent. And I know because I looked up a video of her actual speaking voice, and I think it's pretty awesome. I don't know if it's like authentic sounding at all, but for the patter of the movie, I think it works really well. In the movie, it makes some sense because they're driving from New York to LA.
Uh-huh.
So it's kind of perfect in a way.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to play some of that for you.
Why should I believe you? You got all the earmarks of a cheap crook.
Now, wait a
Shut
minute.
up. You're a cheap crook and you killed him. For 2 cents, I'd change my mind and turn you in. I don't like you.
All right. Don't get sore.
I'm not getting sore. But just remember who's boss around here. If you shut up and don't give me any arguments, you'll have nothing to worry about. But if you act wise, well, mister, you'll pop into jail so fast it'll give you the bends.
She sounds really badass.
Yeah. She's really fun in this. Like, she does a great job. I don't really know her from anything else. Should we keep going or should we stop now?
No, I think we can stop here.
Why, if I wasn't regular, you'd be in the pen this minute being photographed, fingerprinted, and being pushed around by the cops. So cheer up. Get rid of that long puss. Or is your conscience bothering you?
Thanks for listening to Postscript. The music for this episode was created by my brother, Graham. If you want to reach any of us, you can email postscriptcast@gmail.com.
I'm David, the boyfriend.